mobile marketing, where the money is. We initially had 3 panelists, but one of the panelists had to return to the office early today, so apologize for that. But I'm sure the remaining 2 panelists will entertain lots of questions. And our topic today is mobile marketing and where the money is, essentially the ROI that one should expect, one can see for mobile marketing. My name is Kumail Tayyabji. I'm with Mphasis, an IT services provider that works with banks, with retailers, and I run the mobility and digital business unit. And we essentially build applications and solutions for banks and for retailers. What I'd like to do on this panel is have each panelist introduce themselves and maybe provide a perspective, a point of view for the first 5 minutes or so on how you see mobile marketing and how you think about ROI from your own perspectives, from your company's perspective. And just to start us off, what I'd like to do is to just define mobile marketing, because mobile marketing can mean many things to many people. But essentially, the definition of mobile marketing as provided by the Mobile Marketing Association is any marketing that includes mobile advertising, messaging, m-commerce, and CRM. That's a pretty broad spectrum definition of mobile marketing. It can cover many, many things, including the mobile commerce pieces we just heard about. And so from the perspective of size of mobile marketing, it's a huge market. And just to give you some numbers, mobile ads, which are only one component of mobile marketing, for example, in 2013, doubled from the previous year to about, I think the number was about $18 billion in 2013. In 2014, we expect to do about $31 billion in mobile ad spending. And by 2018, that's going to go to about $95 billion. And that is only about 1% of the marketing budget for most companies. And people are predicting that with the growth of mobility and digital, that number should be closer to 7% of marketing budgets. So the scope for expansion is great. And the big question for people is, well, with so much spending, what is the ROI? Where is the money that can actually allow for this growth to take place? And that's a big question that we'll tackle today in the panel. So let me first turn to Belinda. And maybe, Belinda, if you can introduce yourself and spend 5 minutes or so just providing your perspective.
Okay, great. Thank you. Again, my name is Belinda Hall, and I was a banker for many, many years, over 20 years, bank executive, managing treasury management, retail banking, and digital channels. Moved over to ACI Worldwide. You may be familiar. It's a large global payment company. We also offer a number of bank products and digital banking. And I'm in the digital banking arena. So I'm a solution consultant. So I manage online banking and mobile banking. So those are kind of my products, and my clients are large financial institutions. So anyway, one statistic that I found that I thought was just fabulous. It said 75% of Americans admit to taking their mobile devices into their bathroom with them. So I thought, how perfect. I thought, what a captive audience for mobile marketing, right? No, anyway, well, let's dive in. So my perspective, of course, you're going to get a little bit of payments and, of course, banking. Can't get away from that. So there's been a lot of, if you will, disruption in the payments industry, good movement towards electronic banking, as well as just transformation in the payments industry. And of course, that's trickled to how banks are structured, how they function, so on and so forth. But let me talk about the perceived importance of mobile payments. I found some interesting statistics through CEB Tower Group. They said that 61% of businesses are adopting or replacing mobile payment solutions. and 93% of those that are planning to replace are going to do so by 2015. So that's very near term, just right around the corner. The other thing that I thought was good, this is a good shift since I left the banking industry a few years ago. 70% of retail banking executives do see mobile payment solutions as a high or a very high technology investment. And I thought that was fantastic. I think that's where it needs to be, and it needs to continue to move upward. And then the other thing, I've got a statistic that I think kind of corresponds with Bill. The value of global payments, of course, has been increasing dramatically. There's an estimate that we're going to be at about 731 billion that'll be transacting through mobile channels in 2017. So that kind of corresponds, I think he was 600 some odd billion in 2016. With that strong transformation that's been occurring in payments as well as just in banking, you all seen a lot of it. The branch closures, the changes in the way that branches are laying out. And you'll especially see that with the global and the more national financial institutions. You know, we've kind of gone away from, you know, the huge teller counters and these private little offices and that sort of thing to much more of almost a retail kind of kiosk environment. And what's really happening there is you've got a lot of self-serve stations, and a lot of times there's mobile devices, there's tablets, there's iPads, that sort of thing. And so clients, bank customers are, you know, performing transactions that way, working on loan apps, that kind of thing. And you'll actually see the branch staff walking around the branches with a tablet, and likewise helping that client to perform that transaction, finish that loan application, whatever. And the other thing that's happening is really the activities that the branch staff is working on is more consultative sales. You know, sitting there and giving advice on investments and college planning and that sort of thing. And with this shift to digital channels, we're seeing many of our bank clients here at ACI, we're seeing them giving strong consideration to replacing their legacy systems. You know, we work on integrating with bank systems every day, and there's a lot that they can do, you know, in moving to electronic payments and in working towards that, you know, anytime, anywhere format or delivery that consumers are expecting. But some of those legacy systems make it really difficult to make that happen. So we're seeing a big movement to replacing those legacy systems, and it will make it much easier for us to implement anytime, anywhere payments with them. So again, you know, with the branches shrinking, the greater emphasis on mobile banking, you know, we're just really seeing banks adapt to the changes in behavior. And the changes in behavior towards electronic payments, it's not only on the consumer arena, it's also in the business arena. And it's interesting, when I'm at conferences, I get more questions about mobile transactions from businesses, you know, not consumers stopping by. So we're getting a lot of pressure to adapt or evolve our mobile applications to be able to initiate transactions, review, approve, all that sort of thing. So let's get to mobile app marketing. So of course, we offer mobile online banking app. There are many opportunities for marketing, and we're getting a lot of pressure to enhance marketing opportunities for financial institutions. But the marketing is from the proximity-based that are right there at login to the functional to product. On the login screen, of course, you've got those proximity GPS marketing opportunities. You can deliver very personalized marketing messages, and we're seeing our customers get good reception from their bank customers from those types of marketing abilities. We're also seeing the bankers be a little more fun, a little more creative, and engage in-game or by sponsoring a mobile game. And that's really a great way for a financial institution to deliver or to promote their brand. The other thing is, again, once you've logged in, you've got the dashboard, and usually there's some great space. You've got the functional tabs at the front or the top. You've typically got some good balance information on the left, but there's typically some great marketing space in between. You've got your quick widgets on the right. Again, we incorporate some great marketing opportunities for the bank as well. And bear in mind, the banks are doing a lot of good data mining so that they know their customers. When the customers log in, they know what functions they typically utilize, and they're placing very targeted marketing pieces in these various locations that would be very applicable to that customer and/or to the application that they're specifically utilizing. The other thing that we're seeing a great deal is an incorporation of analytics. We are doing a lot of integrations with analytic software that will allow the bank to actually track the mouse clicks, the menu selections, the call to action, that sort of thing. And most of the financial institutions are taking that data and then pulling it back and then feeding it into the CRM system just so they can, further, analyze and develop even, more targeted marketing campaigns. So that's kind of an industry perspective, and I thought I'd end with five of my tips on mobile marketing. One, I think it's important to get responsive, and by that I mean responsive web design. And we kind of talked about this consumer omni, but this is very much the kind of front-facing piece. Moving to responsive web design will allow your application to then right-size based on whatever device that your customer is utilizing. So I think that's really important. Incorporate click-to-call to action buttons, and I think it's important that they be big. They be like as big as a thumb, so that it's easy to find and it's easy for them to actually respond to that call to action. AdWords call extensions are important. You not only want the customer to be able to search on your business name, but you also want your phone number to be attached to it as a link. So, oh yeah, ABC Restaurant, I want to go there. Boom, right there. I click on the phone number, I make a call, I make my reservation. Easy to read emails. We forget that the majority of emails are read on a mobile device. And so we need to be much more mindful maybe about the length and the format of our emails. We want them to read them, especially if we're retailers. We need to think through that it's typically going to be read on a mobile device. And then the last one, again, it's kind of that retargeting for desktop. It's being mindful that many times a consumer will start a transaction on one device. Maybe I started on my phone, but then I finished the loan application, if you will, on my tablet. So just kind of, again, that kind of goes back to that responsive web design. That's also a reason why it's really important to be observant that they typically will move from one device to another. So anyway, that's all I've got for now, and I guess I'll turn it over to my partner, John.
Thank you, Belinda. John?
Thank you.
Very exhaustive.
I hope you're not exhausted.
No, of course not. So I'm John Green. I'm Vice President here in the Midwest for HipCricket. HipCricket's a mobile advertising and marketing company. So we're coming at this conference from a little bit different angle than the other presenters
Sure.
and the content I've seen. So a lot of the work that we might do would be driving shoppers and consumers to engage with your products, to make purchases, to shop, etc. So a lot of what we're doing is awareness and engagement advertising. And then on the marketing side, we're doing things like loyalty messaging, building apps, consulting on mobile sites, QRs, mobile social platforms, engaging posts, and user-generated content. So in what I've seen so far, and particularly in listening to what Belinda had said, it's very interesting, I think, in terms of maximizing that return on investment. If you're going to engage in mobile, the things that I would kind of key on, first and foremost, and I'm sure this has been covered quite a bit over yesterday and today, number one, mobilize your website. And it's still shocking to me as somebody who's consulting with companies all the time, how many companies are not mobilizing their sites, or kind of a halfway in between, the responsive design that you mentioned. Some companies are using that. Use the microphone more. Hopefully you can hear. Is this better? So some companies are using responsive design sort of as a crutch to take their entire desktop site and put it into mobile. And that makes it high latency, long time to load. Just because the buttons are finger friendly doesn't mean all that content is relevant in the mobile context. So I really strongly urge, even when you have a mobile site that's responsive design based, are you sure all that content is needed in the mobile environment? The history of your company, stockholder stuff, things like that, you don't need to have that on your mobile site. All the sites that we build always have a view full site link at the bottom so people can access that if they really want to, but otherwise really have a thought on how simple you can keep that site. You know, and when you're thinking about a mobile site, or as you get into that app discussion, first and foremost with the site, I would suggest a mobile-first design strategy. I would design that from the ground up and not take your desktop site and figure out how to fit it into mobile. Second to that is the whole app conversation. And of course, when we're talking about mobile payment apps and the infrastructure that I've seen presented, that's kind of separate. But if you represent a brand, do you even need an app? A big part of what we do is consulting with that. Often it can be solved with a much simpler web app than having a dedicated app that has to be in the App Store, has to be updated, has limited functionality, beyond the database that's loaded with it. So I would think carefully about that, because most of the companies we consult with, once they see the stats on what it takes to build an app, remembering that it's a separate build for Android and Apple, and then you go through the app download marketing campaigns you have to do, and then you think about how short a lot of these apps live on someone's phone. I would really consider whether you have vital content that the person would want to keep literally on the desktop of their phone. Otherwise, I would probably put an app much further down on your priority list. The other thing I would say, you were talking a little bit about collecting data in CRM, and that's been very, very important. A big part of what we do is really grow CRM through all touch points in mobile. So for us, we're collecting the data in a rich media ad unit as far as, are people clicking to like us on Facebook? Are they inputting their email address to get perhaps an MP3 we're giving away, things like that. But that really leads to SMS. One of my number one recommendations if you want to get into loyalty marketing in mobile, which is to drive a really sticky shopper relationship, is to invest in SMS. I know a lot of people perceive SMS as to be older in the spectrum of mobile tools, but is far and away the most vital in terms of immediate response. You've all seen stats, and they've probably been discussed in this conference here. The difference in open rate between an email and loyalty SMS is orders of magnitude. People may sign up for 15 or 20 emails from brands or stores, but they're only getting 5 or 6 SMS loyalty messages. The open rate on those is in the high 90s, and open rate within the first 20 minutes is even higher. So it's right at the top of the scale. So use that to segment your database, to poll people, to use keywords to find out what locations they shop at, what brands they're interested in. We're measuring the URLs we're putting in text messages to find out what SKUs people are interested in. When you do that successfully, you can recommend likewise products, things that are similar, recommendations for other people you know, ways to engage in a grand opening in one subset of people while everyone else gets a different message, etc. So we really recommend and deploy SMS messaging to not only drive engagement and shopping, but to grow that CRM and make each message as engaging as possible. Another thing that I just wanted to recommend while I had your attention is make sure that you're aligning all your calls to action with mobile, between your print, between your television, etc. For example, our company does all the messaging for Ford, and their print ads always have the call to action to engage with the Ford lead generation system. By doing so and making that engagement very easy and top of mind, it enables Ford to have over a 15% lead conversion by bringing people in, asking them what model they're interested in, having the permission to reach out to them, getting their zip, and having that local dealer be able to call and say, Katie, I understand you're interested in a Focus. When can you come down? So using print, using television, using radio, all in alignment with your mobile.
Good. So thank you, John, Belinda, for the points of view. You both come from different perspectives, Belinda from the banking and you working with multiple clients. And you've pointed out the number of areas that you should focus on. In terms of pitfalls to avoid, John, maybe start with you. What are the pitfalls that companies should avoid when implementing a mobile marketing campaign? And maybe you can just give some examples if you can, or where returns of investment were predicted to be a certain percentage and they didn't reach that percentage because they ran into these issues.
Well, first is just a repeat, which is sending people to a non-mobilized destination. And even if your landing page is mobilized, beyond that, where are you sending them to? So first and foremost is really think of the user flow, try it out yourself, make sure that it's a smooth, frictionless, as the word's been thrown around a lot today, frictionless engagement. That would be the first thing. The second thing would be chasing the crowd. So again, that could be the we must have an app pitfall or something like that. And then the other thing is, and there's been a lot of talk in the last presentation, some other ones about beacons. And I would say, I might even catapult this to number one, don't make your company spam. So just because you found a way to reach people everywhere, I mean, these beacons have the opportunity to not only have somebody delete your app, but walk out of your store for good. Now, they can deliver a lot of great data as far as locations, where people are going, where they're navigating, so you can use things, beacons, to determine that you have bad fixture flow or traffic flow in your stores, things like that. But don't make yourself spam by reaching out everywhere all the time. And furthermore, when you do reach out, don't make it always price item. You have to give some content. So whether it's style points for clothes, different recipe interactions for different products, you're looking at this thing, you should try it with that thing. But you've got to make sure that you have a proper mix of content with your price item. Another thing I would say is a pitfall can be jumping all in with a particular strategy without A/B testing, without seeing if it works, without figuring out the fine tuning that you need to do where you saw another retailer use it. What's different about your customer? Think that through. Do some soft launches and some A/B testing before you go all in. And the last thing I would say is a mistake would be not having somebody own mobile on your staff. So it can't be somebody, oh, you're the IT guy, you're the mobile guy. It doesn't work that way. You need to have somebody on your staff that doesn't just understand technically how it works, but understands the consumer, understands how a tablet's used different than a smartphone, how to reach people when they're watching television is different than when they're standing in the store, et cetera.
And Belinda, your banking clients, what do you have them avoid?
Great points. Well, and I would concur with John. I think following the crowd is just dangerous. And I was talking to my cohort next to me at my table. We were talking about data. I just think data is so important. Utilizing data, making informed decisions when you are employing or deploying a marketing strategy. Just because ABC down the street is doing it one way, is it going to be as effective with my organization or my specific industry? The other thing that I've seen with clients, though, is that they don't necessarily how to read the data or understand the data. You've really got to have people on your team that truly know how to make sense out of the data, apply it to the situation, come up with an appropriate marketing strategy, and test, and then deploy. The other thing I've seen is businesses, specifically banks, sometimes just kind of putting all eggs in one basket. And I think John alluded to this. You've really got it. You've still got to have a multi-phased, if you will, marketing approach. You don't just want to throw all your eggs in one basket. You want to have different phases, different pieces to it, and reaching out to consumers or businesses through different channels. So again, I think mobile is important, or online is important, but again, I think we need to think about the full picture there.
Let's shift gears to sort of technologies that are emerging, right? Technologies that are here today and technologies that will come out in the future. We've heard a lot about iBeacons. NFC is now becoming more mainstream, especially with Apple launching. We're looking at wearable technology and sensors potentially on your wrists, on your clothing. How do you think that's going to impact the entire shopping and payment experience, and especially from a ROI perspective, what should marketeers be thinking about as they look at these new technologies and try to figure out how they should incorporate these technologies into the marketing mix, whether it's mobile marketing for ad spending or for CRMs or for messaging. How do you think that figures into the marketeers' plans?
It kind of reminds me of this old saying that the world is a nail to a child with a hammer. So the idea being, just because these things are out there doesn't mean you have to deploy them everywhere all at once. We're still not seeing the adoption yet at enough scale to get really finite best practices. There's a great story that came out yesterday in New York that Titan, the company that runs the bus shelters in New York, just suddenly came under attack because they have beacons in all the bus shelters that were collecting information about people, probably laying the groundwork for serving ads, certainly for collecting information, and there was such an uproar that they were forced to remove them. And that was before that they worked with anybody to serve a single ad. They were working with, I believe, the Gimbal app. And so it's kind of a cautionary tale in the sense that there are a lot of proven marketing strategies out there, and right now I think the most effective marketing is with the right mix for who you're trying to reach and in what context and what you're trying to say. And NFC and beacons could definitely be part of that, certain strategies, but I would caution against chasing the shiny object and being the first to do this coolest thing. And just because you read this article that sounds so cool doesn't mean it's right for your marketing program, your people, and your context, because there's a lot at stake. You're building a relationship with these people, and you could really turn people off using these things the wrong way. So the keynote speaker right after lunch was talking about how it's better to be a settler than a pioneer. I couldn't agree more.
Belinda?
Yeah, and I would agree with very much what John is saying. I think, if you step back, I do think that some of this new technology could be very beneficial to both the retailer as well as the consumer, but it's got to be used in the right context for the right products, so the right setting, because what a retailer could be doing is really delivering very specific. I'm looking at these specific jeans, or I'm confused about two different types of jeans, and if they're delivering information to me about these jeans, I mean, it could really be nice, but on the other hand, it could be very intrusive, in a less appropriate type of environment, and I think there's going to be an adjustment period. With technology, they already know a lot about us, but there's going to be even more of that, and consumers may be a little hesitant to embrace that, maybe not be as interested in going to those retailers that employ that technology. Somewhere there's a happy medium. I think there's going to be some good benefits out of it. Ultimately, used in the right environment, it, I think, would help a retailer achieve a higher ROI. But again, it's going to take some getting used to, some best case, and really learning how and where to employ that technology.
Yeah, I mean, to expand on what Belinda said, I think if you were selling jeans, for example, if you offered somebody the chance to see a video to find out how this cut fits differently than that cut, would be valuable to somebody. But if you're walking down the aisle and all of a sudden you get a blast, you're looking at blue jeans. How about these red T-shirts over here? That's going to turn people off. That's not content that they're seeking. So I think using all of these things to deliver valuable content, particularly in the mobile, and when you guys were talking about triggering payments and the whole idea of this two-click payment that he was talking about, then give somebody an offer they can't get anywhere else. Give them content that they can't unlock anywhere else. Make the offer very exclusive and why you should act on it right now. But if you're just going to kind of bark at people from left field using these technologies, I think you're going to cost some relationships.
And sometimes also value can be delivered not just for helping initiate a transaction that generates some revenue, but also providing information, right? So we just heard from the previous speaker, Bill showed a video about Chicago, right? That's informational. And you can provide, videos about information to help the, shopper make a better purchasing decision. In fact, I think that there was one statistics I read that 50% of shoppers believe they have more information than the store associate when they walk into a store. And the question becomes then for a retailer, what can you do to, help, not combat that situation, but help, supplement that well-armed and well-informed shopper? And how do you provide the, technologies and the capabilities? What marketing information can you provide that can actually then help them reach a decision? What we'll do now is take some questions from the audience. Questions? Go ahead.
For Belinda, actually, is ACI Worldwide works with banks and so forth. Are you working with the Axioms and the Epsilons to get first-party and third-party data and to analyze it and things like that? Or are you developing your own tools?
You know what, we actually are. We're often just doing some integration. Like one of the integrations we're working on right now is with IBM TLeaf. So we work with integrating with different analytics organizations. And bear in mind too, I'm on the large financial side of the organization, but there's this whole other realm that deals with retailers, that deals with the Best Buys and the Targets. And we're selling credit card processing services, wire services, so on and so forth. So it's a very large organization, but we've chosen more to do integrations with appropriate, in this specific situation, analytics partners, and oftentimes that's coming from our user groups that are saying, this is a great vendor, we'd really like you to build an alliance. So it's more of an, if you will, an informal alliance, and then integrations kind of as we see the need surface. But analytics and as well as, of course, security, back to that S word, those two, we really have extensive relationships and kind of integration profiles, especially in those two areas.
Other questions? I'll ask a question about, role models. When you look at, which companies do mobile marketing well, the ones that, are much more customer-centric tend to have a higher ROI. If you look at, are there any role models that you look at that you believe are good ones for us to learn from?
Sure, I think Ford does an excellent job. Ford has done an excellent job incorporating technology into their vehicles. They leverage loyalty SMS exceptionally well. They leverage QR codes exceptionally well. And they incorporate, as I said, they have a consistency of call to action throughout each media they advertise in. They also do something really clever. With their SMS loyalty messaging, I was mentioning the lead gen, and they may have a similar call to action across, let's say, all their national print, but they'll use a different SMS keyword in each placement they use. So it might be Ford, it might be Focus, et cetera, and they're then measuring the lead response from each of those media to measure that the effectiveness of the media spend as well as driving leads. So they're really thinking ahead, and they're doing smart things like that. They use us to provide a QR code on every vehicle they sell in this country. And we put together a gigantic asset set of, the red F-150, the black F-150, et cetera. So when you stand at that vehicle and you scan that QR, on the fly, we assemble a full mobile landing page for that serial number vehicle that enables the shopper to tap to call the dealer, request a call at a later date, see videos about the key features, save that vehicle, share it with a friend, et cetera. So that's a great resource that's actually proven to be so effective that they've asked us to keep these QRs live for 5 years so that if you sold your truck, you could put the QR code in a Craigslist ad and give that person a very dynamic experience in evaluating your car. So obviously that's very shopper friendly. It's very robust, a very robust experience, but it also tells them on a Monday when they've come in, who is on their lot on Sunday? Which vehicles were they scanning? What should be moved up to the front? What isn't getting a response? So it's also helping them manage their inventory. So they use mobile very, very effectively as an example. And another one I would suggest would be Kellogg's. We run their family rewards, so that is measuring purchase and accruing points and things like that. And so same situation. When you buy a box of cereal, you can enter a string via text or scan a QR. It records that purchase, you accrue your points. But it's telling Kellogg's a tremendous amount of data about which brands are being sold in what market, But also things like, they had no idea, except anecdotally, how much cereal is being eaten at night. So when you're sitting there and you're thinking about your eating, you've come home from a shift job and you have nothing to look at but the cereal box. Next thing you know, you're scanning the QR, you're watching a video, and they know in what markets Crunchy Nut gets eaten after 8 p.m. versus, another brand. And so taking that a step further, if they really wanted to be robust in their supply chain management, they could measure from the time that raw materials were delivered to when it was turned into cereal, when it was packaged, where it was delivered, all the way to when it was finally consumed. So that is another company that uses mobile very well.
Interesting.
Fantastic. Well, and, we deal with a wide range of, and specifically on the financial institution side, but, the Wells Fargo's, the Bank of America's, Deutsche Bank's, Zions, even on the regional side. The thing that because John did such a great job, I can't quite compare with those wonderful examples, but what I would say is that banking is really taking a step back in looking at how they can do things better and differently. And they are very much looking at retailers. And what I think is interesting, I've managed both the commercial or treasury management side of a bank as well as retail. And you would think that the commercial side would be much more complex and whatnot, but I'll tell you, the consumer side is so demanding and want newest, latest software, so on and so forth. And really, it's interesting to see that banks are evolving and having to be as nimble as retailers are. So it's such a changing and interesting world out there, and I think that's even furthermore why banks are operating differently on a daily basis. They're looking more like retail fronts and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of excitement in the financial industry, and I think we're only going to see more of that as payments change, mobile, we move more and more to mobile. And John made a good point too. I think and I didn't mention this a few minutes ago, I think we really need to be mobile first, and that's something that even us, ACI Worldwide, that a couple years ago, we had to say, no, wait a minute, how are we developing product? And I really do think that we need to be mobile first, but be mindful of how we're developing our electronic or online solutions, because, yeah, all the content that's on a laptop or even a tablet is not necessarily appropriate for mobile, but really, where is the growth and where's the movement? The movement's to mobile. Focus on mobile first, and then work out the tablet and the laptop thereafter. So that was a great point.
Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you.
you.